Alright, hey guys, I'm just going to do a quick tutorial, sort of talking you through this new unit that we're doing, just so you can keep going on the work that we started. So I'll do a bit of a refresher and we'll start from the start, just because we only had a few lessons and there was a few people missing as well. So we are doing fabric fundamentals. Our core unit is properties and performance of textiles. So we're looking at the fibre, yarns and fabrics that we use and their properties and how those properties link to the end use of the item. So for example, the properties of the fabric, fibre and yarn that we would use for denim would have the properties of being dimensionally stable, of being strong, of being abrasion resistant. So we're going to be actually doing some experiments as well, just to show you what the fashion industry would do to test the fabrics before they even select the fibre, yarns and fabrics for the intended end use. But we're going to be looking at the properties specifically so that you know how to select the most appropriate fibre, yarns and fabrics for your major project or projects in the future. Okay, so we're doing properties and performance of textiles. So I'm going to start from the very start. So uses of textile products. So this is pretty self-explanatory. Imagine a world without fabrics. Textile materials are all around us and used for many different products, including clothing, furnishings, medical applications, car interiors and engines, road and buildings, industrial applications, and safety and security products. The range of textile materials and applications is developing all the time. Choosing the right textile material for the end use of the product is a complex process because there are so many interrelated factors that must be taken into account, and choices will vary according to the type of product being made and the intended user. For example, here's another for example. A fabric to be used for a school shirt will need to be strong and hard-wearing, easy to care for, yet comfortable enough for a young person to wear during the school day. In contrast, the aesthetic appearance of a fabric used for a special occasion dress will probably be more important than how well it washes and if it is likely to last for a long time. So you're comparing two completely different products there. You've got a school shirt that is worn pretty much for everyday use, and then you've got a dress which would have to be probably laundered, okay, professionally taken to a laundromat and actually laundered. So you wouldn't be able to wash that in your standard sewing machine, in your standard washing machine. You would have to take that to someone to get professionally cleaned, and then the school shirt obviously gets chucked in the wash, gets chucked in the dryer, and it has to be hard wearing. Alright, looking at the properties, characteristics, function and aesthetics of textiles. The selection of fibres in a textile product is very important. The properties of textile materials vary depending on what fibres have been used and the way that fabrics are made and finished. So functional properties such as strength and resistance to abrasion, so abrasion resistance, absorbency, ability to insulate, elasticity, drape, stiffness, flammability, ease of care, colour fastness, and the ability to be heat set are important to different levels in different types of textile products. For some products, the aesthetics of a fabric are as important as well as its function. Aesthetics is all about personal taste, and what one person finds attractive may be unappealing to someone else. Okay, so as well as the properties of the textiles, we are also constantly balancing the functional and aesthetic features of the textiles. Okay, so these are the things that we need to consider, and you'll have to write about as well in future exams. Okay, so whenever they're talking about properties and characteristics, they are also talking about the function and aesthetics of the item. More so function with properties than aesthetics, but aesthetics plays into that as well. Right. Classification of materials. So fibres are very fine hair-like threads and are the basic building blocks of fabrics. Okay, so we're starting at fibres. All fibres, regardless of their source, are made up of atoms that are joined together to make molecules. Molecules can link together to form long chains called polymers. Okay, we're going to get into this a little bit more. All textile fibres are made from long chain molecules, but the combination of atoms in the molecules will vary from different fibre types. So that's saying it'll vary from, say, wool to cotton, or cotton to polyester. So every fibre type has different characteristics. Some are similar, but most of them have different. They will usually include carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Fibres are made from natural or man-made polymers and have different properties according to where they come from. Okay, so we're going to get into the natural and man-made, but a natural fibre is like a plant or animal hair, and a fibre is made out of that. So for example, cotton or wool is natural. Man-made is something like nylon or polyester, because they're synthetic fibres and they're made from chemicals or byproducts of plants, but they're made from that. So fibres must be twisted, spun together to make a yarn before they can be made into a woven or knitted fabric. Okay, so we're starting at fibres, we've got yarns next, and then we've got woven and knitted fabrics, and we'll get into that. So this is the process down the side here. So fibres starts from plants, animals, or oil, or different wood products. It's spun into yarns, into woven or knitted fabrics. It's finished using different finishing methods if it needs to be for the intended use, and then made into products. Okay, now we're looking at fibre classification. Okay, so there's a few different types of fibres, and we are going to look at them in detail. So, the first fibre classification is natural fibres. Okay, so natural fibres come from plants and animal sources. Plant fibres are made from cellulose. You'll need to know that term. Cellulose and animal fibres are made from protein. Okay, so you've got your plant fibres. They are cellulosic fibres. They are made from cellulose. So think plants, cells, cellulosic. Okay, so it means that it's fibrous. And then you've got your protein fibres. So these are your two protein fibres, and they are from animals, animal wool or silk. And then you've got natural hair protein. Okay, so cashmere is from the cashmere goat, mohair is from the mohair sheep, and angora is from the angora rabbit. Okay, so they are hairs, types of hair protein. This is animal protein fibres. So you've got wool and silk, and then you've got cotton, linen, and ramie, which are all cellulosic plant fibres. So under the branch of natural fibres, you've got these fibres. Okay, so if in an exam you were asked what are two types of natural fibres, you would obviously just name them, cotton, and you can name cashmere. Okay, they are natural fibres because they come from a plant or from an animal. Okay, and they are used how they are. They're spun into yarns, and then they're made into fabrics. Okay, so there's no chemical product that's involved in it in the process. Okay, so these are natural fibres. Okay, so you are going to be asked in your work booklets to explain the difference between the three categories of natural fibres. Okay, so these three categories here, plant cellulosic fibres, natural protein fibres, and plant protein, hair protein fibres, are your three categories of natural fibres. What are the difference between those things? Okay, so what you could write is that plant cellulosic come from the plants. Give examples, e.g. cotton, linen. Animal protein comes from, is manufactured from the animal, so wool or silkworms, so it's made by the animal. And then hair protein, because hair proteins are slightly different to the wool from a sheep. Wool from a sheep is a lot thicker. The cashmere, mohair and angora are all hair type fibers, so they are a lot thinner. Okay, so you need to differentiate between those three things. So similarities and differences is what I want you to talk about. Okay, I know you don't know a lot about them at the moment, but I just want you to explain what the difference between the three are. Okay, then we're going to go on to the next page, and then you'll be asked another question about that. Okay, so they were your natural fibers. Now we're going to look at natural fibers, but we're looking at the newer fibers that are being developed around technology. Okay, so as technology evolves and sustainable options are becoming more popular, with environmental sustainability being a current issue and trend, alternatives to the established and widely used natural fibers such as cotton, other sources of natural fibers are beginning to be used to make textile products. For example, bamboo, pineapple, and banana leaf fibers. Alginate fibers from seaweed are used in medical applications as well. So you've got 4 different types of fibers there that they are developing due to new advances in technology. Okay, so you've got alginate fibers, which are produced from brown seaweed. So all that brown seaweed that you see on the beach, that's what it's produced from. Okay, you've got pineapple leaf fibers from the pineapple leaves. Bamboo fibers, which are obviously manufactured from bamboo plant. And then you've got banana leaf fibers manufactured from the banana tree, which is behind my head. Hopefully you can see that. Okay, so what you're going to do is list 3 environmentally sustainable fiber innovations. These are your fiber innovations, and explain why they are sustainable. Okay, so, or just explain why one of them is sustainable. Okay, all right, next one. So classification of fibers, we're looking at manufactured fibers now. Okay, so our 2 types of fiber classifications, natural fibers and manufactured or man-made fibers. Okay, so manufactured fibers, including regenerated fibers and lyocell fibers, we'll get into that in a minute, are mostly made from natural cellulose. So what does that mean? Whenever you see the cellulose word, that means it comes from a plant. Okay, so natural cellulose is from a plant. So from natural cellulose from wood pulp or waste cotton fibers that are too short to be spun into yarn. So in other words, it's just discarded or byproduct of producing cotton. Okay, so they're too short to be spun into yarn. So they're using it for manufactured fibers. They have been chemically treated to modify the cellulose so that it can be made into fibers. Okay, so you've got 2 types of classification under manufactured fibers. So you have regenerated fibers, which are fibers that are made using leftover plant fibers. Okay, so for example, cotton fibers, they're reusing that, so it's regenerated, it's reused. Okay, so that's what regenerated fibers means. It means that it's reused product that is then chemically treated to make a different fiber. Okay, so they're not making cotton from it because they're using the offcuts of cotton. They're using the cotton fibers, chemically treating it to change it slightly, change the cellulose in that fiber, and then they are making a completely different fiber. Okay, so synthetic fibers are made from chemical processes. Okay, so this is something like polyester or nylon. Okay, it's more like nylon. So This is when they use chemicals, they melt it down, and they produce it from scratch. It's just made from chemicals, okay? So regenerated fibers are first generation manufactured fibers and were known by names such as viscose and rayon, okay? Modal and lyocell fibers, so these are just types of fibers that they've made, are second generation fibers, and the most recent in the development in this type of fiber. Each time the fiber is developed, the strength, softness, and crease resistance has been improved. Lyocells are more environmentally friendly fibers because they are manufactured using a closed loop system that reuses the chemicals used in the process. So that just means that they've used chemicals and then they've reused them. Okay, so they're not just chucking them out and that's waste, they are reusing them. Okay, synthetic fibers are man-made fibers manufactured from synthetic polymers, so synthetic chemicals from the very, like, you know, they're starting from synthetic chemicals, okay, so it's completely synthetic, man-made, that come mainly from oil, okay. The synthetic polymers are made by joining smaller molecules together to form a long chain. This process is called polymerization, okay. So we're going to look at the manufactured fibers now. Alright, so you've got manufactured fibers up the top there. You have two classifications, two types of manufactured fibers. So this will allow you to put this sort of information into categorize it. So you've got regenerated on this side. What was regenerated? It is reused byproducts or using of waste to create the new fibers. Okay, so you've got viscose rayon, you've got acetate, you've got lyocell, and you've got modal. Okay, so if you see any of those words in your exams, you know that that is regenerated, reused. Okay, regenerated, which means that it's made from something else. Synthetic fibers are your nylon, polyester, acrylic, and elastomeric, so like lycra. Okay, these fibers are chemically produced. They are made from scratch, man-made from scratch, through chemical processes. Okay, so it's completely chemical based. All right. So we are going to go on to the next page. In your work booklets, you are going to have to define the term manufactured fiber. Okay, so what is a manufactured fiber? It is a fiber that is produced completely by humans. Okay, so it's not produced from a plant or animal. You will also have to define the term natural fiber, which is produced from animals or plant sources. Okay, then you will need to label this diagram in your booklets for natural and manufactured fibers. Okay, so you have to write down these names of the fiber types. Okay, then you will need to explain the difference between the two categories of manufactured fibers, similarly to what you did for the natural fibers. Okay, so what is the difference between regenerated and synthetic? Okay, what's the difference between them? Alrighty. Next one. So fiber properties. So at the start, I spoke to you about the properties of fiber yarns and fabrics and how that relates to the end use of the textile item. Okay, so when a fashion designer or it could be someone that develops tents or could be someone that develops any textile based product, they are going to test the fiber yarns and fabrics to make sure that it has the characteristics, the properties that they need for the intended end use. Okay, so for example, if I was to develop marine grade, so for a boat, the upholstery for a boat, so chairs for a boat, I wouldn't so much think about aesthetics. Okay, what would I be thinking about? I would be thinking about durability, so abrasion resistance. I would be thinking about strength, okay? I would be thinking about color fastness, sun resistance, okay? Effect of chemicals. I would be thinking about how the salt water is going to impact, or water is going to impact on my seating for this boat. I would also think about water resistance, so some sort of finishing product that would make it water repellent, so that I wouldn't have to worry about the water getting on it and destroying the seating. Okay, can you see how I am thinking of the different properties that I need for that product? Okay, so we have a range of different tests that we would do for these things, and we will get into that later in this topic. But what I want you to look at the moment is these are just basic ones, okay? Basic properties, but I want you to look at them and I want you to write some of them down, okay? So you are going to be asked in your work booklet to write down, you're going to have to explain why it is important to understand the properties of fibers and why different fibers have different properties, okay? So these are the properties. So why would different fibers have different properties? Because they are used for a different end use. Okay, you will have to identify the four main categories of fiber properties. So aesthetics, durability, comfort, care. I've given you the answers there. Okay, so we've got luster. Luster is something that we look at when we are looking at, say, a ball gown. It's always related to silks, okay, because they've got this shine, they've got this gloss, okay. So luster is something that it's all about gloss, sheen, sparkle, or shine of a fabric caused by light reflecting from the surface. Okay, so polyester is a really good one for luster. Okay, it has a lot of luster because when we get into this too, the fibers of polyester, you'll see, are like glass rods. Okay, so the light hits that fiber and reflects. Okay, so you get all this gloss and sheen from it, right? Silk is similar. Okay, it has these really nice sort of triangular fibers, and the light hits that and reflects. Okay, so that's luster. Drape is how a fabric hangs or falls. Okay, so it's sort of like the softness of the fabric. So think about a ball gown and how it fits onto the body, and then it just falls and drapes, and you've got those nice curves of the fabric at the bottom. Okay, that's drape. So these are aesthetics, obviously. So it's something that you look at the garment and you go, oh, look at the gloss of that fabric. Okay, so it's visual, you can see it. Durability is all about abrasion resistance, so ability to withstand rubbing or wear and tear. Okay, so abrasion resistance is all things to do with outdoor wear, any thicker fabrics that you're using. So if you are intending to make some denim jeans, this would have been a test that we would have done for your denim jeans or denim jacket, okay? Abrasion resistance, okay? Because there's something that you're going to wear a lot, okay? It's a daily thing. So abrasion resistance would be something that you would do, look at for school uniforms as well, okay? Strength, ability to resist breaking. So strength, think about bags. So you want bags to be strong and sturdy. So a strength test is something that you would do for that. I also did that for my baby swings as well. So I sent my baby swings off to get tested to a third-party organisation. They gave me back a report of the findings from that. And if it was unsuccessful from that third-party testing, I wouldn't have been able to sell my baby swings. Okay, so I put them through these sorts of tests that relate to the product. So abrasion resistance, strength would have been one of mine. Okay, you got to look at all these care instructions as well, so they can be washed. So you don't want them to shrink. Color fastness was a huge one. So you want the color to stay in it while it's outside. Okay, so think about the product that you're making, or think about a potential product that you could make, and maybe in your work booklets you'll have to list different ones for different products, and I'll show you that in a minute. Okay, so you got comfort, absorbency, ability to absorb moisture. Think about towels for that. Okay, you want it to be absorbent. Elasticity, so you got ability to return to original shape after being stretched or compressed. Okay, so think about activewear, tights. You want them to stretch and you want them to return. You don't want them to stretch and stay stretched. Okay, thermal properties, ability to withstand and transfer heat. Okay, so think about, for that one, thermal properties, think about a firefighter's uniform, okay, that they wear out when they're going to a fire, okay? You want it to withstand heat, all right? So you don't want it to you don't want it to hold the heat in because they'd be really hot. Also, like thermal blankets, you know, when people are in like accidents and things like that, they give them a thermal blanket because they're like in shock and their body's shutting down, or when they've you know, been in water or something and they put a thermal blanket over them, or it's freezing cold and they put a thermal blanket over them to hold the heat in, because that fabric holds heat in. Okay, dimensional stability is inability to shrink or stretch. Okay, so it's going to stay the shape it is. So if you stretch it, it should go back to the same spot. Okay, so that's dimensional stability. So you don't want it to stretch one way and stay that way, and then the other way it's still the same. You know what I mean? Like it's still the same as it originally was, but the other side is really stretched. Okay, so that's dimensional stability. Okay, you got care. So effective chemicals, ability to withstand acids, alkalis, and solvents. Okay, so that's a chemical test. So you, it could be a bleach test. It could be a, like I said, salt water test. Sun resistance, ability to withstand deterioration when exposed to sunlight. Okay, that's pretty self-explanatory. Color fastness, ability to withstand color change after exposure to heat or water. Okay, so this could be like a washing test. So you wash something, you know when you get those clothes sometimes, and you can tell that they're being dyed, okay, because it's like coming off on your hands or something like that, and then you wash it and it washes all the color out. That's color fastness. So that's a product not having very good color fastness. So you want the color to stay in it if it's been dyed. And then shrink resistance is inability to contract. Okay, so it can't shrink, so it's not going to shrink. So if you wash it, you don't want it to shrink. So they say that when you buy fabrics, you should always wash them before you use them, because most of the time, if you wash them after you've made a product already, they'll shrink. It'll shrink. So they always say wash your fabric before you use it, which is interesting. Okay, so they are your fiber properties. Okay, so that's what determines the end use. Okay, so it helps you determine what the end use of the product is and the properties of the end use. Okay, so fiber properties are aesthetics, durability, comfort, and care. So in your work booklets, you're going to have to complete this diagram. Complete this diagram. So identify the properties of the textile items in the following table. The first example has been done for you. Select two other end uses and identify the fiber properties required for each. Okay, so just ignore that bit. You're just going to list from the fiber properties. You're going to list what fiber properties each item should have. So the first one is jeans. And I've written in abrasion resistance, strength, and dimensional stability. You could add in some other ones like color fastness as well. It's up to you. I just want you to identify a few for each one. If you can identify all the ones that apply to each one, that's great.